Hello everybody, welcome to another video for EDU 552, Literature for Children. This week's video is on Chapter 8 of the Russell text, and it's about fantasy. So the book that I am reviewing today is a classic, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So this is book 2. It's considered book 2 in the 7-book series of the Chronicles of Narnia written by C.S. Lewis. But this was actually the first book that was written. It was written in 1950, right after World War II. So the setting is actually taking place during World War II because they're escaping the bombings in London and they go to a professor's house. So it's kind of interesting that the books were not necessarily made in full order, but they've been put in order since by the author, which is pretty cool. Now, the Chronicles of Narnia are what's considered epic fantasy, and epic fantasy is kind of, I think, like your stereotypical version of fantasy. What do you think about when you think about fantasy? So like Harry Potter, even like Lord of the Rings, all of those are epic fantasy, and that is what the Chronicles of Narnia is too. So overall, epic fantasy, there's a couple things about it. So first off, usually there's like a kingdom or society where the main characters need to overcome a very powerful evil force. So in this book, it is the White Witch that is the evil force. It's also considered like very serious for the most part. Like these are serious journeys that the characters are taking because they need to defeat the evil that's in the world, right? So like other types of fantasy books just in general would be like Alice in Wonderland or The Wonderful Adventures of Alice in Wonderland or The Wizard of Oz, right? So those are kind of a little bit more whimsical or a little bit more like adventure-y from like a fun standpoint. But books like The Chronicles of Narnia or Lord of the Rings, it takes a very serious tone in trying to defeat whatever evil is there in the world, or even like Harry Potter, right? It gets very, very serious by the end when they're trying to defeat Voldemort. Also, with these types of epic fantasy books, there are usually a lot of characters involved. Now, there's not a ton of characters in this installment of the Chronicles of Narnia with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like it's pretty much like the family and then the White Witch and the Lion. So overall, like it's not a ton of characters, of main important characters to keep track of. But as you get higher and higher and deeper into epic fantasy, there becomes a lot of characters. And even like some of the series like the Wheel of Time have literally like over 200 characters that you need to know. And that helps to build the world, but it also can be very tough for the reader to get into. Overall, epic fantasy is something that I've wanted to dive into more. Like I would love to read like the Lord of the Rings and even like the Wheel of Time and things like that. I just sometimes get confused with the world, right? So I like Narnia, even though it's a kid's book, I like books like this that take the like world that literally humans are living in and then they like go to another dimension or world. I like things like that because I'm still rooted in like actually what I know instead of just going fully into a world I don't know. But I'm working at it. I'm trying to do that because I think it would be amazing to actually like learn. It would be so cool to be able to read those type of books. So eventually I'll get there one day. It's on my bucket list. So to talk more about the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe itself, just kind of like a basic summary of the book. It starts off, the kids, the four kids, they go to this like house during World War II. Okay, it's like this ginormous house. They keep talking about how it's huge, and there's so many rooms in the house. And the youngest sibling, Lucy, she goes into a room when they're playing kind of like hide and go seek or just kind of checking things out, and she goes into this wardrobe that's inside of this room, and she goes into the wardrobe. She makes sure to leave it open, but as she travels through, she's realizing there's more than just coats in here. And all of a sudden, like, she's feeling like the brushes of trees on her, or the branches of trees on her brushing up against her. And she's feeling like snow on the ground. And all of a sudden, she's in this place, Narnia, that she really doesn't know about. So as she goes in, she comes across Mr. Tumnus, who is a faun, who was like half human, half goat. And who was this guy on the cover, actually. And he like invites her in to have tea and kind of like butters her up a little bit. And then we learn that Narnia is actually a very bad place. So she thinks like Mr. Tumnus is a super awesome guy, and Mr. Tumnus is like, I'm actually supposed to kidnap you. Like this is an awkward situation for me. I don't really know what to do. And he was hired as like from the White Witch herself to do this to any human that comes. And then Mr. Tumnus sneaks her back without trying to let the White Witch know. He's trying to be very discreet about it. She goes back, and she thinks that she's been gone for like the whole day, and she returns, and no time has passed in like the real world, in our world. And like none of her siblings believe her. So then Edmund, one of the brothers, he goes into the wardrobe, and instead of coming across Mr. Tumnus, he comes across the White Witch herself, and she basically like kidnaps him. And from there, we have all the kids wind up going in, and they meet a bunch of different characters. And I don't want to like spoil the rest of the book in case you actually are interested in reading it, but that's kind of like the start of the book. So then they have to figure out really like what to do with Narnia. And eventually Edmund comes back, and then all the kids go. But it's still a pretty crazy story. And the White Witch, we learn that she can turn people into stone, and that she can turn anything into stone. So throughout this book, there's a bunch of different elements that are taking place that all kind of revolve around fantasy. The first is like animal fantasy. So you have characters in this book that are animals that have like human traits. So they can talk, they can move, they can they have like their thoughts that would be like human thoughts, and that's how they communicate with the kids. Obviously, it's epic fantasy. In a way, it's kind of a dystopia, in a way too, even though the ending's pretty happy. But Narnia, it's always snowing. It's always winter. Mr. Tumnus said it's always winter here, yet it's never Christmas. So just imagine like it's snowing there all the time. And I guess that's not too far off of our winters, but imagine if that was 12 months a year, right? So it's pretty dramatic in this book, and that kind of rings a bell for the kids in the book. One other thing I would like to mention is that currently I'm doing like a read aloud with my students, of the 3rd grade students, with this book. So we've only read a couple of chapters so far, but the kids seem to be into it for the most part. Like we were reading some parts in chapters 1 and 2, and they're kind of intense, like especially when Mr. Tumnus is like, I have to kidnap you. And like all the kids were kind of like wide-eyed. They're like, oh my gosh, what is this guy gonna do? So that was pretty cool from like a teacher standpoint, that the kids seem pretty engaged. So hopefully that will continue during our like virtual read alouds that we have. But I think the kids will enjoy this book. I enjoyed the book a lot too. I started reading book 1 also, The Magician's Nephew, which is really cool. I thought the beginning of that book is really amazing. It's super intense and actually kind of creepy. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, that's what I got for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I somehow never read this book as a kid. My brother said that he read it as a read aloud in class when he was a kid. But also when I was growing up, that was when the movie was coming out. So it was pretty popular. I guess I just never read the whole thing, or that I can recall. Maybe I did at one point, but I don't recall it. So yeah, that is the read aloud for this book, Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Pretty awesome. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.